Welcome to But I'm Not an English Teacher, Part 1. I'm Jean Reynolds, an author and longtime English instructor. I often discuss report writing with faculty from police academies. Here's something I hear all the time. But I'm not an English teacher. Many students have a similar complaint. But I wasn't good at English in school. The good news is that you don't have to be an English whiz to write effective police reports, or to be an effective instructor for report writing. The keys to success are instruction, practice, and accountability. Today you're going to watch 3 videos that offer practical strategies for raising students' writing levels quickly. First, here are some essential principles. 1. Students should practice writing every day. This is why your lesson plans always include a journal activity. Some students may not have done much writing in school. They need to develop fluency and confidence. 2. Everything students write should be checked twice before an instructor grades it. Once by the writer. This is why students must complete a writing checklist. Second, by a small group of students. This is why every writing assignment is followed by a group process. 3. Most writing problems have 3 causes. Students are in a hurry, students write like they talk, and students have gaps in English usage. 4. Most usage problems can be prevented by writing simple, straightforward sentences. If you start most sentences with a person, place, or thing, you won't need sophisticated punctuation. You can usually just put a period at the end of the sentence. Let's look at a complicated sentence. Richard started to slide his right hand into his right front pocket. Upon seeing this movement, I proceeded to grab his right hand and told him to stop. Now that's complicated and it requires a comma. Here's a better version. Richard started to slide his right hand into his right front pocket. I grabbed his right hand and told him to stop. Better. I'd like to begin by noting that sometimes students are confused about what they've learned in the past. In fact, I've had students disagree with me about English usage. For example, I require students to spell a lot as 2 words, but students have told me that a past instructor told them to spell a lot as 1 word. And then I'll get an argument about a sentence like this one. The chief commended my partner and me for our quick thinking. Some students will say that they were told it should be my partner and I. And then there are quotation marks. In American punctuation, commas and periods always go inside quotation marks. There are no exceptions ever. By the way, the United Kingdom does it differently. But in every class I've taught, there are always a few students who say they were taught a different way to do it. Who's right and who's wrong? Well, here's how I handle it. I explained that sometimes students forgot what a teacher said years ago, or they may have misheard what the teacher said, or they may have had a teacher who unintentionally passed on some misinformation. The information in criminal justice report writing is based on professional writing principles. I have a doctorate in English and I've published 11 books. Students who continue to doubt can verify the correctness of the rules in criminal justice report writing by checking internet or library resources. A good place to start is the online writing lab, OWL, at Purdue University. And here's the website. You can also just Google it. Dictionary.com is another good resource. A useful reference book you'll find in any library is Fowler's Modern English Usage. This video is going to review some basic punctuation issues, a kind of heads up of questions that might arise when you're teaching. You can refer to criminal justice report writing for additional examples and practice exercises. First, let's deal with commas. You can avoid many comma problems by starting each sentence with a person, place, or thing. As I said before, simple, straightforward sentences don't require fancy punctuation. For example, Clarkson told me her husband usually worked until 10 or 11 p.m. All you need is a period. But if you start a sentence differently, you may need to deal with a comma. Compare this version. When I questioned Clarkson, she told me her husband usually worked until 10 or 11 p.m. Now that's correct, but it's a little more complicated. You need a comma. Take your pick. Commas are also necessary if you change your voice in a sentence. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to seize the illegal shipment. Now listen to this example. Jane's brother, who has a cocaine habit, has been stealing from her. Notice the pair of commas, one to lower your voice and one to bring it back up. What about semicolons? Well, they're just like periods, but there's no capital letter. You're making two sentences into one. I approached the dog, period. It snarled at me, period. Or, I approached the dog, semicolon, it snarled at me. Both are correct. There is no need to use semicolons in a police report. Just end every sentence with a period. Our next topic is quotation marks. As I said before, in the United States, periods and commas always go inside quotation marks. Students can verify this themselves by picking up any book, magazine, or newspaper published in the U.S. When I questioned Phillips about the argument, he told me it was a private matter. Notice the period goes inside. It's just a scratch, said Benton. Notice the comma goes inside. But there's always a student who insists he was taught to place periods outside quotation marks. When this happens, I usually ask the student to do some research and report back to me. That usually settles the question. What about apostrophes? There are 3 simple rules. 1. Use apostrophes only in contractions, didn't, couldn't, and of expressions, Taylor's badge. 2. Apostrophes don't mean more than one. Notice the sentence does not have apostrophes in the foods. We're serving hot dogs, hamburgers, sodas, and cupcakes at this year's open house. Now, why is there an apostrophe in years? It's because it's an ownership phrase, the open house of this year. 3. Place the apostrophe after the last letter of the word or name. Often you can hear the last letter. Bill Carter. Do you hear the R? Bill Carter's job. The Carters. Do you hear the S? The Carter's house. Sally Jones. Do you hear the S? Sally Jones' wallet. The baby. The baby's medicine. The baby's health. A family's vacation. The family's problems. Now here are 3 words that students will be required to memorize. Notice that the apostrophe comes after the last letter. Men, men's. Women, women's. Children, children's. Criminal justice report writing offers detailed explanations that students can study along with practice exercises. As students work step by step through the book, they will gain confidence and competence with the writing skills needed for effective reports.